And then they undress.
Ooh.
But they leave their undergarments on.
Ooh.
You're listening to Getting Fae'd. We,
Meike,
Lukas,
and Leah are reading A Court of Thorns and Roses for the very first time. Today we are covering chapters 17 and 18. Get Fae'd with us!
Woo!
So guys, I brought you a question. Before we start into the nitty-gritty of it all, I brought you a spicy question.
Oh boy.
So I wanted to ask you, fuck, marry, kill, Lucien, Isaac and Tamlin.
easy.
Yes, very easy.
Fuck Lucien, marry Isaac, kill Tamlin.
Yes, I agree.
Same.
Yeah, and because that was way too easy, I brought a different question.
I know.
So the question is, Lucien, Tamlin, Isaac, have as a flatmate, have as a brother-in-law, and have as a parent. Discuss.
Follow-up question.
Yes.
Can I fuck my roommate?
I mean, that's up to you, I guess.
And they were roommates.
Oh my god, they were roommates.
Ha.
So I have an answer, but I also had time to think about it.
I think my roommate would be Lucien. Just because he's the most fun to be around.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
I feel like I have to spend the most time with my roommate. How about you, Meike?
I'm not sure. I feel like maybe I would choose Tamlin as my roommate because he would suck to be around, but it is not required to spend all of your time with your roommate. So I could just, I don't know, try to avoid him and try to find a new flat.
Well, I guess...
I feel like a roommate is temporary. And what was it, stepbrother?
Brother-in-law.
Brother-in-law.
So
Oh,
the
well, that's-
husband of your sibling.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, maybe.
So
I would choose Isaac as a parent.
Yes.
Because
Yeah,
he feels
same.
generally cool. And I want a good, grounded person as my parent.
That's what
A good role
I
model.
started with too. I was like, okay, you have to choose Isaac as the parent. And
Yeah.
then my arguing was Lucien is the more fun person to be around. And I mean, yeah, it sucks for your brother, I guess, if they're married to a shitty person. But how much time do you have to spend with that partner anyways?
Yeah, that's true. I thought you said stepbrother. So,
Yeah.
yeah, brother-in-law, that's a whole different game. It makes sense. Parent, Isaac, flatmate, Lucien, Tam as my brother-in-law.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm glad we all agree.
Good. Good.
Was this a test?
No, I just thought
Okay.
it would be fun to go like fuck, marry, kill. And then I was like, that's way too easy. What could be more interesting to talk about?
How about you guys at home? Let us know. Slide in our DMs. Instagram at Getting Fae'd Pod. Also, shout out to our 2 listeners from the Philippines.
Yes. Woo! So before we start, really, let's have a little recap. So after a gruesome fight against the Naga, Feyre and Tamlin grew a bit closer, and Tamlin invites Feyre on a tour through the gallery.
A cute date.
Yes. But this chapter, chapter 17, starts in the middle of the night, and Feyre awakes from a nightmare. She dreams of her encounters of the day, and she dreams of a pale, faceless woman dragging her blood-red nails across her throat. And she's asking for Feyre's name. And I feel that kind of foreshadows or gives us the vibe of a female BBEG, big bad evil guy. And I feel like, especially this chapter, hammers that down even more.
Yeah. It's funny because with the last dream we had in this book, we were like, oh, how refreshing to have a dream that's not a prophecy or doesn't mean anything in the story and it's just character building. But now I feel like this has to mean something.
Yeah, but she also already felt like she was being watched in that first dream. And if this evil woman wants to find out her name, then maybe this evil woman wants to find out things about her.
It opens up many questions. Like, who is she? I mean, there is a she in the story, but are she and the faceless woman the same person? Or is maybe the faceless woman this godlike person who, like, created Prythian? And is that she or is it not? We don't know yet.
I also think this woman in her dream does not have to be this evil she, but could just be a representation for a looming threat by a powerful female player.
It's hard to tell because Feyre never talks about this dream with anyone. She could just be like, by the way, Tamlin, how does that she you're also afraid of look like? Does she have a face? And if not, I think I have a problem.
But for Feyre to go to Tamlin and say, man, I have a problem, we need to talk about it.
That's true.
I don't think we're there yet.
Also, Feyre does not know she's in his story and her dreams have meanings.
Yeah.
I wonder if the fact that she is not able to answer in this dream has a meaning. Like maybe in the future, around the middle of the book or something, she will encounter someone asking for her name and then she will answer and we'll be like, no, she shouldn't have. Like if it means she shouldn't tell someone her name or if it's just someone wants to know more about her and isn't able to know yet.
So after Feyre has awoken, she hears shouts and screams from the entrance hall, the foyer. I always imagine it as a foyer, but I feel I'm not doing it justice by that.
There's
with
a
that
little page
word.
boy taking orders.
But yeah, she immediately jumps out of bed and runs outside of a room to the staircase and
there
takes a
she
look.
meets Esteban from A Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
She associates these screams with a dying animal, and that's why she immediately runs there to help.
The description is pretty epic.
Yes.
I liked how she talked about the sound of the scream. I have to admit, I said last episode I would go open-minded into these chapters. And if I'm being honest, they might be my favorite so far.
Both?
Yes.
Okay.
Even though I have a lot to talk about. But yes, I think both of them might be my favorite so far.
Okay.
Yeah, and I also feel like we're getting more character from her. And I really like that she is someone, when she hears someone in agony and pain, she immediately goes to help, not knowing what is going on. And I like that.
She's collecting some good karma
Yes.
with this and also with the fact that she helped the Suriel escape. I feel like that has to come into play later.
Yeah, probably,
She's not
hopefully.
the typical kind of cold-hearted heroine in a book. I feel like a lot of female characters especially have kind of lost their compassion because they have been forced to like feed a family and make tough decisions for them. And we see that Feyre is not like stripped of that compassion. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and she finally acts of her own accord.
Yeah, she acts on her own accord of Thorns and Roses.
She's not super passive anymore.
Yes.
Go, Feyre.
Yeah, she sees Tamlin rushing in, and he's carrying a screaming fairy. And I was like, yes, finally some Tamlin scheming. Right when they got close together, he's like doing evil shit behind her back. But no, turns out he's helping a wounded victim.
Damn him.
Yeah, he is a noble man caring for his disciples.
No.
This is actually a very gruesome scene that is happening. He's carrying this fairy that has blue skin, gangly limbs, pointed ears, and long onyx hair, and also does not wear a mask.
He wasn't invited 50 years ago.
Yeah, the Avatar people were not invited. Yeah, and where its wings used to be, there are only bloody stumps left. The scene is like a hectic frenzy where Tamlin shouts instructions to Lucien to clear the table so he can set down the fairy. And I don't know, I could really picture it well in my mind, and I like that scene a lot.
Same.
And Feyre immediately rushes down to help.
Yeah. Also, I want to see wings in action.
Yeah.
That just sounds cool.
But I also had to imagine our little cover fairies with ripped up wings, and that was very sad.
Yeah. I have to get used to the description of these lesser fairies. Because in my mind, a fairy is just a little whimsical thingy. And then it is that thingy, but in big. Like the way
Yeah.
she describes it is just like the little tiny Tinkerbell thingy, but then in human-sized, even as big as Tamlin.
Human-sized and goth.
Kind of weird, but also kind of cool. And I imagine how big are the wings? Like, how do they get around? Do they just fly, or do they can they tuck them in as angels?
Yeah, that's
Or
the
are
thing.
they always big?
Like, have they skin wings or like translucent?
Leather wings.
Yeah.
Not translucent leather wings, but translucent wings or leather wings.
Yeah, we are back to our discussions way, way back in episode 0,
Yeah.
where we speculated about these fairies.
And we still don't know.
Yes. But we learned that this fairy was dumped just over the border from Summer Court. And again, this fairy repeats, she took my wings, she took my wings. So probably maybe this evil she or another evil she.
How many evil sheets are there?
Evil she.
She will.
All the 7 queens are insanely sadistic. Nice.
Do you think this evil she from Summer Court will be like the main antagonist for this book?
I mean, I feel like we know what the main antagonist for the whole series will be.
The king from Highburn?
Yeah, the Highburn king.
Probably.
But maybe either she will be like the book one antagonist, or she will even be a step above the king from Highburn.
We cannot be sure she, the evil she, is from Summercourt, can we? It's just the fairy is from Summercourt and something happened.
The evil she.
Yeah.
The evil she happened.
In my mind, she just kind of acts in all courts. I mean, if that's the same she, I mean, we learn that Lucien is from Autumn Court and got hurt by her. This guy is from Summer Court and got hurt by her, if that's her.
That's a question I had. Do we know that Lucien got hurt by the she, or did we just interpret it, or did Feyre just interpret it that way?
I think it was us. I
But
think
we
he
are
just
right.
says he spoke out to someone he shouldn't have spoken out to.
Yeah.
And we assumed that it was she, maybe, because he seemed to be afraid of her.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
He claimed at a later point, I think, that like, if she hears about it,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. So maybe that wasn't even the she that took his eye.
What I also liked is that the courts seem to be diverse and not just cliché inhabitants, because this blue, dark goth fairy, I would have thought it lived in Winter Court or Night Court. But you know, Summer Court can also have cool...
Goth fairies. I also think, like, if this evil she is from Summer Court, I think that's a good subversion of expectations, because you would always like think of the winter people as the evil cold people, but summer people as evil people. That could be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Feyre thinks whoever she was, she hadn't just taken his wings, she'd ripped them off. This whole scene is very gruesomely described, and that's cool, I like it.
Yeah.
It doesn't shy away from brutality here.
The way the fairy just repeats, she took them, she took my wings, she took them, is pretty cool. I think that's stronger than describing the wound over and over again and like focusing on the blood and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty jarring. And I think Sarah J. Maas has a thing for losing wings, because in her newest series, there are angels with wings. And it's a thing that, like, as punishment for severe crimes, they lose their wings. I feel like she focused more on, like, what it did to you mentally instead of what it just did to your body. And I think that's pretty interesting too. You know, losing wings means so much more than just losing a limb. It's probably losing freedom and losing a lot of abilities you had before. And
It's a metaphor.
yeah, and probably status also. Maybe we don't know how this like works, but maybe a fairy with wings is more like socially acknowledged than fairies without, maybe. And to lose it is, like, if he survived, he would have a scar. It would be obvious to everybody that he once had wings and then someone took them.
It would just be bad if this fairy worked in like a dating agency, because he can never be a wingman again.
Sigh.
I'm sorry.
I think like flying and the ability to fly is such a common fantasy among us human people, not like mortals in this book, maybe, but like with so many people. And fantasy of having wings is very appealing, I think. And then ripping them off seems especially cruel because, as you said, they are a symbol of freedom and power, probably also, like especially with angels. But Feyre immediately wants to help Tamlin, who tries to bandage the wound. And she tries to hold down the fairy, but the fairy is very strong. And she looks to Lucien for help, but he himself is in shock and he seems frozen in place and then vomits before sprinting out of the room. And I have to say, I find it very hard to take vomiting scenes like this seriously, because I know objectively that they are supposed to relay like this visceral bodily rejection, but they are always so unexpected for me. When they appear that someone's vomiting, I never expect it. And then I'm like taken aback and go like, okay, they're vomiting now. And in my imagination, like vomiting usually takes like longer and it's not like, and in this case, Lucien even has the awareness to aim for a potted plant. So we get to know that Lucien has some traumatic experiences and this takes him very intensely.
Yeah, I hope we will find out more about that. Spoiler, we will.
Yeah, I was very happy that we're getting more depth to Lucien as a character with this. But I also was like, Lol, he vomits. I don't know why I just can't take this seriously.
It's sometimes played as like comic relief in some movies,
I guess.
but not here.
I think Sarah J. Maas is very successful in describing how horrible this whole situation is and how much pain the fairy is in, and while describing how Tamlin and Feyre hopelessly try to help them.
Well done.
Good writing in this scene.
Thanks, Sarah. Come on the pod.
I was glad that we got Lucien's backstory in the next chapter, because at first I thought her making him vomit was just a very dramatic way of telling us it is a gruesome sight. And I myself, as being a little emetophobic, was like, please do not include that in a scene where you don't need it. But it makes sense. I mean, it showed us that something in funny, sarcastic, never taking anything serious Lucien is not so funny and not taking everything serious. So it made sense that he had a very strong reaction. I was like, okay, you're allowed to. I didn't like it, but you're allowed to. I can just skip that sentence.
Yeah, that's interesting because I didn't even read it as like, oh, it's just gruesome, Lucien can't deal with it. I feel like because she describes like how his eye like widens and gets small again, you can easily read it as shock. And then I was like, oh, a traumatized boy. Yay. Yay.
I was surprised he didn't even try to hide it because of Feyre, because I feel like he's a very like self-centered person in a way. So he would probably not want anyone to know that he has like this dark thing in his past and has a reaction to something. So that he is not able to hide it at all just shows how much it still hurts him.
Yeah.
I think maybe if he had a chance, he would have hidden it, but you know what's got to come out has got to come out.
Yes.
Also, I found it interesting that Tam has to do this. I mean, I guess he doesn't really have time to get anyone else, but is there no medical staff at this mansion? Does no one else know how to do this? Were they just so well off the last 500 years that no one had like visited medical school?
I mean, the mansion is pretty empty. We know that most people have left. What I found funny is that he says like border control found this fairy around the border, and then they had to call for Tamlin, and they were immediately going to the High Lord to be like, there is someone wounded at our border. And then he comes and gets him himself. But I feel like it's just they saw the wounds and knew they couldn't do anything about it. And if someone could help, it would be Tamlin, and even he can't because of this blight thingy.
Sad.
Yeah. Feyre also thinks like maybe in his shock or haste he forgot about the infirmary, or he wanted to handle it immediately. So apparently there is an infirmary.
Yeah, we knew that.
Yeah.
That's where she patched him up after he fought the bog, right?
Yeah, so but that means there is like a medical place.
Yeah, but I guess it's just for show because he doesn't need an infirmary. He can just snap his fingers and make medical equipment appear, which is pretty fun.
I found that interesting that we learn like limitations to his power, because he can make these supplies appear, but he cannot just heal this fairy outright.
It's the first time we see something not working for him, is it? I mean, he's been pretty powerful so far.
I mean, he took some time to find the bog, so we couldn't just do a locating spell, but
the bog
otherwise
is pretty powerful as well.
Yeah.
And then Feyre realizes that the fairy is going to die, and she tries her best to comfort them. She holds their hand, she's brushing their hair out of their face, and she consoles them with words. And she says to them, you will get them back, regarding the wings. And she swears that this is true, and this is the first false vow I'd ever sworn.
I love that scene.
You loved that scene?
I did. The way she just cares for the fairy is so good.
Yeah.
Like the hand holding, the stroking of the hair, and her just talking to him and not caring about the lie. That is not a bad lie. She's just comforting. And I like to read that.
Yeah, I also think this is a very clear sign that she left her old life behind and her beliefs behind. And this whole scene shows that she's basically completely assimilated to her life in Prythian now. That she associates these as people that belong to her, that she would show compassion to.
Also, after all that went down, for the first time, she truly feels remorse for killing Antras. And that's also just a sign that she accepts not only this life of hers, but the people around her as actual people with feelings.
And when this fairy dies, Tamlin says a prayer, and I would like to read this prayer because I found that kind of cool. Mother hold you. Pass through the gates and smell that immortal land of milk and honey. Fear no evil, feel no pain. Go and enter eternity. And while he says this, his voice trembles. Here's a man showing emotions. But I found this idea of this immortal land of milk and honey quite interesting.
It's fun because honey is immortal, but milk is not.
Isn't that taken from Jewish beliefs?
I don't know, but I'm very certain it is from something that we know.
There is the land of milk and honey. I just cannot put it anywhere.
It also feels a bit like the elves from Lord of the Rings again, who are like basically immortal, but then they pass over to an immortal land that is better than everything.
There's so much in this prayer, I think, that can be deciphered and put into question again. Because once again, we have talk about the cauldron. Then we have talk about the mother, which could be the woman from the mural, maybe. Like mother in a way of like God. And then the gates you would have to pass through to get into eternity, which kind of, I mean, we have gates in pretty much every religion, I think, where someone like judges your character and your actions in life. But
I was just confused. Judges your character? What?
Your D&D character was cool and yours was not.
You will go to hell now. No, I understand what you mean.
Like your personality.
Yes.
And I wondered, what do you think eternity looks like for immortal people?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I understand the concept of like this land of milk and honey, which is like an equivalent to paradise and heaven and whatnot. But why do you focus on eternity when you're immortal?
I guess when you are immortal, eternity is quite important to you because all the people that you know are in eternity. And if they pass from you, then they are awaiting you in this paradise place when you eventually, if you might fall, then like I feel like in this case immortality is like, okay, they get old but they can still die because they can be like stabbed to death and such. We don't even know if there might be sicknesses that could kill them.
Yeah, isn't there a different word? What is it when you like
There's, I guess, immortality and invincibility.
Immortality and invincibility. Invincibility
Yeah.
just means you just live, and if someone comes and stabs you, they don't, and you don't die.
Yeah, it's
but
just
immortality
the star
just
power
means
from
you
Mario.
don't die of like natural
Cause. Yeah.
I guess. But you are invincible.
Yeah, I mean, they had a recent war for them where they lost a lot of people, and I think a lot of them lost a lot of friends. And I think that's an issue of religion to, have an explanation where they go after that.
And after staying with the dead body for a while, Tamlin leads Feyre to her chambers and he wants to bury the furry. The furry!
It happened! Yes!
Oops!
God damn it, Tamlin, go bury the furry.
So Tamlin wants to bury the fairy.
Alone. Yes. And first Feyre insists that she wants to join, but then she understands that he has to do it alone because she would have wanted to do it alone too. So they're basically the same person.
Soulmates!
But before Tamlin leaves her, he wonders why she was so kind to that fairy. And I thought what Feyre says was a very nice sentiment. She says, because I wouldn't want to die alone. Because I'd want someone to hold my hand until the end and a while after that. That's something everyone deserves, human or fairy. And that's neat.
It's very neat, but the way he had to ask.
That's stupid, yes.
She held someone's hand while they were dying. And he goes, but why did you do it? You killed one of us. He doesn't get her at all. She is not a killer and he should know that. It's not like she ever found pride and stuff in killing Andras. I mean, she said something similar to that in the first chapter when they met, but that was just because she was like, oh, fairies are evil and you are evil and you're taking me captive. And now I'm telling you, I'm glad I killed your bro. But never did she really mean that. I don't think so. And for him to be like, why did you help? I don't get you. It's just, bro, you don't understand her.
Meike, are you saying that maybe Tamlin lacks emotional intelligence? What?
But
yeah, I really like what she says. She's very honest.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the chapter ends with Feyre apologizing for killing Andras and truly meaning it. But wait! This chapter truly ends with Feyre looking after Tamlin as he leaves and buries the fairy, appreciating the muscles under his bloody shirt. That's my girl. That was so unnecessary.
Yeah. I was so
chapter.
happy with this chapter. It was so well written. It was nice and interesting, and we learned stuff about the characters. And then he goes off and he's like, yeah, he's hot.
And it's again this bloody wet white shirt. She gets me.
Not this again. We've been here.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. I mean, okay, Feyre, you can have these thoughts, but there's a time and a place, and maybe the time is not now, and the place is not standing in a pool of blood of a dead person.
That's love, bitch.
But okay. I mean, she didn't say that to anyone. These are just her thoughts. We can accept that.
That's
she
okay.
has some wild thoughts during that chapter. I mean, there were multiple instances where she's like, oh, he's dying and his skin is such an interesting complexion and I would not be able to draw this. It's just funny that her mind would go to that. Like, how would I paint this?
Yeah, but I think those moments are more like to show how different this world is that she is not accustomed to, and like how she appreciates it and actually kind of values it, I guess.
I think it was just a way to other him a bit more.
I mean, she doesn't stop and start painting it. She's like, I know this is important right now. Fuck this fairy, I'm gonna draw you, bitch.
Sarah, help. No, I need a pen and paper.
Such texture. Ooh. I need a different color. Lucien, stop vomiting. Bring me the blue. Bring me the cyan. Bring me the onyx for the hair.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Yes.
So, before moving on to chapter 18, just once more, I want to invite you to Conspiracy Corner with me.
Woohoo!
Because there's this one moment where Feyre pins the fairy down and says, his injuries must have weakened him greatly. If I could keep him pinned. Or maybe that's just your Fae blood power magic coming through there. What do you
Power
think?
magic.
Yeah, she just says this so offhandedly, and I thought, no, you just have some power you don't even know you have.
I like that you caught it. I feel like you caught a few moments now where this happened, where she explained something that she was able to do that could also be explained by her having Fae blood. So I am intrigued, let's say that.
I guess if it was so unusual that a mortal could pin down this fairy, I feel like Tam would maybe catch that, like, what the fuck, why are you so strong for a mortal? But then again, maybe Tam has an evil master plan and already knows that she's so strong and maybe doesn't want her knowing that she's so strong, and then that's why he doesn't say anything.
Maybe he knows that she's special, that's why she's there, but it's not like an evil master plan. Maybe it's like a gray area master plan where he's like, you are the cure for the blight, that's why you're here. But it's not like, I'm evil, I kill you. I don't know. Depends how it's presented, I guess, if it's evil or not. But I think Tamlin is very unpredictable in like picking good moments. He's not very good at that. So on the one hand, I would think he would be intelligent enough to not ask this while he is trying to save the life of a fairy. But on the other hand, it's Tamlin, so maybe he would. But, you know, he does try to get to know a lot about her. He wants to know, like, everything. He asks this and he asks that. And, you know, it's dressed up like, I just want to get to know you. But it could be like, I need to know everything.
Like a certain someone in her dream.
Ooh. Do you think he works for her?
Maybe.
But then Lucien wouldn't want to.
Maybe Lucien doesn't know.
But Lucien knows about the plan.
I guess
Right.
they all
Shit.
maybe work for her. I mean, yeah, Lucien lost his eye to her, but I think they accepted this as something that just happens when you deal with her, and maybe they still have to answer to her. I have some more theories in this direction in the next chapter.
Okay.
We will get to this.
The juice is flowing.
Oh yeah, and one more thing I wrote down after that chapter is that I think Elk-Kitty is inevitable now.
Elk-Kitty?
It's our shipping
Elk-Kitty.
name.
Oh, I forgot about
It's
that.
our shipping name
I
for
forgot about her shipping name. Why was she Kitty again?
because she purred that one
yeah,
time.
yes.
It's good that we explained this name again, probably. So chapter 18 is a lot less action and more talking again.
I love this about this book that it's gore and fights and high stake action and blood and drama, and then the next chapter we go to a lake and have a picnic.
Yeah, but it's funny on the one hand, but it's like relieving. You have this tension and then you go like, and now I can let it go. No?
It's just kind of sad that she doesn't build the tension a lot. I mean, this chapter has been, I don't know, I didn't check, but maybe 8 to 10 pages. It felt even shorter than that because it was so fast-paced and so much was happening, and it actually immersed you. And then you're so full of adrenaline and so full of that, wow, Prithian, we're finally here. And then we just do picnic shenanigans. I liked the chapter, but in contrast to the chapter that we just read, it just felt so unnecessary. Like, why was it here? I want to get the story and I want to know what's happening. And
I've never read a romantasy novel before, but I feel like there are two stories that have to be catered to in romantasy. One is like the fantasy part where like big action plot is going on, and then there's the romance part where like giggly picnic time is happening. So to have that both alternating is, I don't know if it's an interesting choice because I have no comparison, but it's at least, for me, an interesting way to handle this deck. It's another dichotomy.
Yeah, I don't know if interesting is the right word. I would maybe even call it the easy way. I feel like to intertwine these two plots is a bit harder. But I feel like if we get both plots at the same time, we will get this later in the series or later in the book.
I also think we are affected by the way we are stopping after every 2 chapters. I feel like if you're reading it like more in one go, then maybe the alternation would flow a bit better, because you have this fight against the Naga, which was high tension and high action, and then it's like winding down time and they get to know each other better, and she goes to bed and you think, we have the gallery tour, and then she wakes in the middle of a night and it's drama again, and then you get a relief in this chapter now.
I guess the way this book defines fantasy and how it defines romance just kind of doesn't go together so well. And that's why it kind of clashes. Because I feel like for her, fantasy is like gruesome, tragic action stuff. And then romance is perfect harmony, hero type of thing. And that kind of doesn't go together very well. So we have to put it in separate chapters. But maybe at some point in this book, it can intertwine and become like one. Because I feel like maybe fantasy can be more than just something bad happening.
I guess you wouldn't put your chocolate pudding on your steak.
Well, you would.
This book was made for you.
You wouldn't put your chocolate pudding on your steak, so it's easier to just eat the steak and then eat the chocolate pudding for dessert. But a good cook will put some chocolate in the tomato sauce, and maybe we just need that.
But if you have the chocolate pudding as dessert, in this analogy, you would eat a bite of steak, a bite of pudding, a bite of steak, a bite of pudding, which is also a very weird way to eat your dinner.
Yeah.
No, maybe it's I eat steak and pudding and then do it again the next day. And then the book represents a year of my life.
What a life.
Just let me try to sound intelligent here with my big metaphors.
Okay, I will grant it to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this chapter is a lot more lighthearted and there's a lot of lore dropped, but not in a way that opens questions, but answers some, which
Finally!
I was happy about, yes. And it finally gets a bit steamy.
I took some nice pictures of Meike while she was reading.
You cannot say that! You cannot start your sentence with, I took some pictures of Meike after she said steamy.
While she was fully clothed and reading these chapters, while the steamy stuff was happening in the book. And I think they are fun and you can check them out on our Instagram.
at getting Fae'd pod.
Even though I just said I was annoyed that this chapter was so slow and different in comparison to the last one, I had a lot of fun with it because
You had strong reactions to what was happening.
I was so excited that we finally would kind of leave this whole will they, won't they, I'm evil, you're evil, no, we're both evil, we don't like each other thing behind. She's in Prithian and we're fine with it. He accepted that she's human and she accepted that he's Fae, and now we can smack.
Get to business. So after this rough night, Feyre sleeps in and then starts her day with the intention of finding Tamlin to explain to him again how truly sorry she is about Andros' death. And then she meets Tamlin and Lucien in the entrance hall, the lobby. No, the lobby, I don't know, foyer.
The foyer.
And it is described how Lucien immediately leaves through the front door and he does not acknowledge Feyre at all. But then he gives just a casual wave. And I was very confused by this because it felt very out of character. And I interpreted it as that he's probably self-conscious about last night and wants to avoid her maybe. But then why does he wave? Because he doesn't want to be rude, I guess, which feels very contrary to that. And then I thought maybe I'm interpreting this wrong. So maybe he's still shook about last night and just not in the mood for conversation and jokes. But he also doesn't want to be rude, so he gives a little wave. But this also feels like contrary to the character that we got to know so far. That was weird.
It's nice that you had such a roller coaster like I did, because when I read it, I was like, okay, Lucien's there. Finally, we can find out if he's okay. Oh no, he's leaving. Is he not going to join them? Okay, Tamlin says he's got the horses out. Okay, Lucien is sitting on the horse, so he's coming with us? Is he coming with us? Okay, he's coming with us. I was so concerned he would not be in this chapter, because he was set up to be important in the last chapter. Like, his story was set up to be important, and I wanted him to be there, also just because I like him.
Yeah.
And then I was scared he wouldn't be there.
Yeah. But
he
also,
was.
like, the way he acts in this chapter seems like he's not affected at all.
Yeah.
I guess he had time to put his guard up again.
And alcohol.
Probably.
True.
Lots of wine.
Yeah, so as you said, they're going on a ride, all three of them together.
Woo! But why did they bring Lucien?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
This is so weird.
He's third wheeling so hard in this chapter.
So horrible. But yeah, they have a nice day out. And I noticed while Feyre thinks about the interactions and, you know, it's written in first perspective, so we get to, like, experience her thoughts. And she uses the nickname Tam for the first time.
Wow.
Wow.
And maybe Tam will use the nickname Fae.
Fae. Fifi.
And then he will get it. He'll be like, come on, Fae. Fae? Fae? You're Fae!
And she's like, what?
Feyre, you're Fae. I thought I would make a Harry Potter joke, but it just didn't.
It would be, you're a Fae, Feyre.
So anyways, they ride to a nice place.
Yes, they arrive at the most beautiful place in the world, but those words apparently do not do this beautifulness justice.
Do you think she could paint it?
No, because it's so beautiful she cannot even paint it.
That's her go-to sentence,
Yes.
isn't it?
It felt very weird to me. This place just feels like too perfect. Just kind of like fever dream perfect place.
I liked it. I mean, you're a man who loves nature and who appreciates nature and can find like supernatural places there. And, you know, I don't know if I had those exact feelings she had, but...
But do you know what I like about nature? The roughness.
I knew you were gonna say that.
And the unkempt, dirty nature of nature.
But you know, I mean, this place, they're sitting on a knoll, a little hill that is overlooking like a valley with trees. I don't know.
A glen.
Yes, a glen. And, you know, I have seen some hills where I was like, this is insanely beautiful. I cannot fathom it.
Yeah,
this is
that's true.
amazing.
It's nice for Prithian to not just be evil
Yeah.
and dark and full of monsters.
Prithian is dark and full of terrors.
The nature is so pretty that Feyre does not want to sit on the blanket.
She says, I certainly wasn't going to ruin the experience by sitting on a blanket. Okay, girl.
I guess she'll have to deal with fairy Lyme disease soon.
Doesn't she know about ticks? Are there superhuman fairy ticks in there, Brithian?
Is she gonna be like Tick Woman? Is she gonna have
I wrote
superpower?
that down. I have here in my notes, is she gonna be Tick Woman?
We share one brain cell.
That's her superpower.
I mean, she needs tick superpowers because she has to stay with Tamlin at all costs. And it's good to stick to him.
She's just gonna grab his leg and suckle on it. Steamy, sizzling romance! And you know, like Lucien just put down this blanket.
This whole blanket scene is so funny because in my head it played out like this. Feyre was just standing there so lost in the view, just looking at the glen and being like, a little saliva drool coming out of her mouth. And then in the background there are Tamlin and Lucien trying to put up this blanket, but there's a little wind and they kind of struggle. And then they put it down and they're like, nah, it's not facing the right direction. And then change the blanket and then put stuff down on the blanket and then they're like, ta-da! And Feyre turns around and is like, I'd rather sit on the grass.
She's like, no, bitch.
And it's purple. I love that the blanket is purple.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's a good color for a blanket.
And then something happens. This is just me combing the book for conspiracies about Tamlin maybe being evil because she sits down on the grass and then she hears some rushed whispers behind her. And before she can turn around to investigate, Tamlin comes to sit with her. And this can be interpreted in, I guess, two polar opposites. Because maybe I thought, okay, this is the evil master plan. Tamlin has to get on a good side and maybe mate her. And Lucien is helping him and says, no, you have to go sit on the grass with her. Mm-hmm. And then that's why they did that. Or Tamlin is just awkward and has a crush on Feyre and maybe brought Lucien as his wingman. And he says, yeah, I stay here, you go sit with Feyre.
Yes, that is exactly what I thought.
I had a little third thought, which I'm not sold on, but I thought about it when I read it first, and then I reread it, and I was like, they're probably just whispering about, like, should I go there? Yeah, you can go, but what if she doesn't like me? Yeah, just go, it's okay. I thought maybe it's those thingies from, like, 4 chapters back, those little sniffling whatever thingies that wanted to approach her, open in the wild, and then Tamlin kind of shut them off. But
yeah, probably
I like
not.
the thought of Lucien being like, just go. Nah, I don't know, I shouldn't. Nah, just go. I like that better.
Yeah, I think either way, if it's an evil master plan or Tamlin genuinely wanting to spend time with her, I think Lucien is there as a wingman.
Yeah.
Which is very awkward, but also pretty fun.
Especially since he had such a tough night. Then they just leave him.
Lucien, I know this was rough for you. You vomited and all, but you have to go on a ride with me. We have a little picnic and you have to tell me what I have to say to her. I will give you wine.
Maybe Tamlin has like a little earpiece and Lucien tells him what to say.
That's what I mean with sitcom shenanigans in this book. I can think of an exact episode from Sweet Life of Zack and Cody where the plot is that someone has an earpiece and another person tells them what to say to their date. That's just, I get sitcom vibes.
Yeah.
And I guess I like it.
It is very funny. They sit there together in the grass and they have a nice, cute conversation with Lucien in the background as a spectator commenting from the off. And this is such a funny image, just Lucien sitting there, sprawled out on his blanket alone with his wine bottle that he drinks from the bottle and just watching them be together. And the best would be if this would turn into a challenger's situationship. That would be the best. But yeah, then I was shocked as Feyre pulled out her flirting skills. I'm just gonna read it. She says, he, talking about the Suriel, also said that you like being brushed, and if I'm a clever girl, I might train you with treats.
Kinky?
What the fuck is this sentence, girl? I could not believe it when I read it.
This is where it turns fanfiction-y again. Because that's totally what happens in every fanfiction. They're shy and, kind of submissive and scared. And then just with a snap, they're like, oh, I'm so good at talking back to you, and I'm so clever, and I'm so witty, and also I'm very sexy.
But it's just, what?
I love how Lucien reacts to this. That he just laughs and then drinks his wine and goes like, brushed?
Yeah, this whole conversation turns into like a three-way banter.
Yeah.
Tamlin also laughs very, very loudly. And so I was like, maybe there's hope. It's like a three-way flirt kind of thing.
Yeah, while it reminded me of fanfiction, it also felt very natural. For the first time, I thought it was silly and kind of annoying and absurd, but it felt like, okay, maybe three people not really knowing each other, kind of having different relations to all of them, sit down and are forced to spend time with each other. And that's how it feels.
Yeah, it's not just this moment, but also later and before. When Feyre allows her infatuation to be there and she's like, ooh, I'm in a flirty situation right now. She always is very awkward, and I kind of like that. Tamlin asks her a question, and she's like, oh, he's so hot. And then he looks at her, and she's like, what did you say? That felt relatable.
Yeah.
Yeah, but after this fun little banter, Tamlin leads Feyre away to a pool, not of water, but made of starlight.
And Lucien is not coming along.
Yeah, now it's just the two of them.
Sizzling.
Yes, and again, Sarah J. Maas inserts sentences where Feyre marvels at Tamlin's muscles and thinks about how it feels when he touches her, so her attraction is very noticeable. And then, unprompted, Tamlin starts to undress himself and prompts Feyre to go swimming with him.
This is where the reaction photos happened.
Yeah, Feyre declines, and of course Tamlin leaves his shirt unbuttoned.
Of course.
But first, like, what is this pool? How cool is this? It's a pool made out of starlight. But when Feyre asks Tamlin about it, he kind of reacts like me. Whenever Meike asks for details about a story,
to say that.
and Tamlin is like, I don't know, I didn't ask.
He is so cliché male in this moment. And you are so cliché male. Whenever I ask you about something happening in your friend's life, I'm like, oh, why did it happen? What are they doing? What did they say? I don't know. I didn't ask.
So this is again relatable.
Very
How
realistic. Slice of life.
Yeah, world building wise, this is like a special place. We learn that this is like Tamlin's favorite place from his youth, and it's kind of magical and starlight in a pool. sounds cool.
I can really see him bringing every date to this place and being like, isn't it pretty?
But don't you want to go for a swim?
swim?
Don't you want to feel how it is? Don't you want to know what it's like?
That sentence? Don't you want to know what it's like? I was like,
Wink, wink.
Tamlin!
You naughty bitch.
Now we're talking.
So, he's growing on you.
Not Tamlin himself, but maybe their relationship and their flirting. Yes.
Very nice. Very well. So, they talk about Lucien's reaction last night, and that made me very happy because we got some backstory for Lucien. He is the youngest son to the High Lord of Autumn Court.
We were right.
Go us.
It's nice that he decorates his room in home colors. And we learn that he has 7 brothers who fight each other for the title, who have to fight each other for the title, and that only the strongest can inherit the title, and that this is the same in all the courts. So does that mean Tamlin had to fight his brothers
I thought so.
to inherit?
It kind of makes his whole I didn't want it make sense. Because it kind of feels like he killed someone for the title he didn't mean to kill. Maybe he was always like, I'm not going to win. I'm not going to fight them, whoever they are, sister or brother. And then they fought and he won. And he didn't want to or expect to. And something changed his mind. I don't know.
Yeah.
And now he's like, I didn't want to kill someone to be where I am.
Maybe his sibling was like, no, we have to fight, so my right on the title is established. And Tamlin's like, no, I don't want to fight. And then
They
wins.
fought.
But maybe Tamlin just does not have a sibling, because we learned that Fae'd children are
You're right, yes.
extremely rare. So it's kind of strange that
To have 7
Yeah.
brothers, right?
8
6 brothers.
children.
8 children. But maybe, his dad lived for 8 eons and
Yes.
just had one child every 1,000 years. I'm glad that it's not just, oh, the eldest son gets the throne, because that is a very, very bad way to decide who's gonna rule the people, because what if your eldest son sucks? But then it's not quite democracy, it's just survival of the fittest, and the strongest man is on the throne.
Yeah, they changed one stupid system to another stupid.
Yeah, it has somewhat the vibe of the most capable person is supposed to inherit, but capability is equal with strength in this case.
Yeah, so it would be good if there were like good tests in place, but it's just who's the strongest, who's the most violent, who's the most ruthless.
Always a fight to the death?
I don't know. But I also don't think so, because
that would be so stupid.
Incredibly wasteful.
Yeah.
But yeah, instead of fighting for his title, Lucien traveled and made friends in other courts, among them Tamlin, and had relationships below his station. And he fell in love with a low-born fairy and wanted to marry her. But his father executed her in front of him, as his 2 elder brothers held him and made him watch, which is very, very cruel.
Okay. This is the moment where my big conspiracy comes in. It's not a big conspiracy, it's just a big conspiracy. So if Lucien met Tamlin, and they are both sons of High Lords, but only Tamlin has these powerful magic powers, does that mean that you only get these powers when you assume the role of High Lord? Does someone give these powers to you? Because why was Tamlin born with these powers and not Lucien if they're like both sons of High Lords?
I thought Tamlin is just very special.
I like the idea that when you assume the title, you get special powers. It's a cool idea.
So in my mind, you get special powers when you become High Lord, and these special powers are given to you by her because she maybe like oversees all the courts, and that's why they can't rebel against her, because she would just take their powers away.
It kind of contradicts what Lucien said in that one chapter when he's like, we High Fae are only meant to rule.
Yeah.
We don't have powers, we just rule.
I agree with Meike. I think Tamlin is supposed to be very special. Even though I like this idea, I don't think it comes to effect in this story. But we will see, yes.
I mean, if that's the case, that Tamlin is like the only High Lord even with these powers, then, you know, the other High Lords or the Autumn High Lord would not be a very threatening villain if Tam could just rip him apart. I just wanted to put that theory out there. I was really hoping you would maybe like my theory.
I do like it.
I like the idea of becoming High Lord, meaning becoming something more. You know, like drinking some special concoction and suddenly you wake up with an ability, like a level up. I like that. I just don't think it felt like that from what we've learned. But maybe you're right.
Agree. I have to say, when I read this backstory, I fell even more in love with Lucien because he's just one traumatized boy. And I have to say, fictional traumatized boys with daddy issues are just my Achilles heel. And over there are Loki and Klaus Michelson waving at me.
It's very basic, but
it works.
It works, yeah.
Basic but effective.
Yeah. But there's one thing you kind of brushed over. Is Lucien our bisexual king in this story? Well, the way he says it, like he ventured from the courts and made friends with the males, and then his eyes glinted, and he had a relationship. And I thought his eyes like glinted because he then is like, and he fell in love with people below his station. But they could also glint because Lucien just ventured around and had special male friends, and Tamlin
was one of them.
Maybe at some point.
You know, I wanted this to be true.
Well, he says he spent his youth doing everything a High Lord's son probably shouldn't, wandering the courts, making friends with the sons of other High Lords, a faint gleam in Tamlin's eyes at that, and being with females who were a far cry from the nobility of the Autumn Court. And I was like, making friends with the sons. And then I read the next sentence, which goes like, and then he had intercourse with females. And I was like, aww. But then I read it again, and I was like, no. I'm going to believe that the gleam in his eyes is for all the shenanigans he and young Lucien had.
Okay, you can believe that, and I want to believe it too, but I think the gleam in Tamlin's eyes is just to show us that he means Tamlin and Lucien just became friends. But then again, there's the headcanon, and I do not want to disrupt your headcanon. And this can have happened in the past.
You know, it says he did all the things a highborn son shouldn't do. And that probably includes fucking boys. You know? I want to read it that way as well. And I think I do. He has to be bisexual. Look at him!
Why is making friends with other High Lord sons something you shouldn't do?
I think the High Lord maybe views everyone as a potential enemy.
You would think as a ruler of a court or land or whatever, it is to your advantage if you have good relations with the surrounding lands.
What I have to say is funny, having read Throne of Glass. I don't want to spoil too much, so I'm just going to keep it vague. This kind of mirrors two characters from Throne of Glass a lot. Well, it's two characters combined into one. In Throne of Glass, there's one character who at some point has someone they love executed in front of them while being held back. The executioner is his father. And then we have another character who didn't really like the way his father, who's also a lord, viewed the world and other people, and he was like, I want to go out there instead of just being royal. So that character gave up his royal title, and he has still a kind of dealings with his father. And I like how characters meet parents they are estranged to. I always think that's a very nice dynamic, but I'm getting ahead of my point. So we have two characters who I've read about before, kind of combined into Lucien. Not personality-wise, I think both of those characters are very different, but it's kind of funny.
Yeah, but you know, like this image of someone being executed in front of a character's eyes and him being held back, it's just so, I love it. You know, it's so horrible.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it's so hot.
What? No.
I was so worried for a second.
It's so horrible. But, you know, it makes me feel for these characters so much.
Well, fictional pain is just
great.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's why you would read a story like this, you know?
Yeah. I think, hot take, I think why it's so interesting to read or watch characters like that is because in our society, most men do not show feelings. And in fantasy, that is kind of even worse because they're also manly and they fight. They don't need words. They have swords and that kind of stuff. But when something very, very, very tragic happens to them, they actually show feelings. They often cry or like burst out in a lot of emotions, anger, sadness, whatever. And we so rarely see that it's very appealing in a character. And that's very intimate. I mean, you don't usually see people super vulnerable unless you're very close to them. And I guess seeing that character so vulnerable makes them kind of close to you.
Yes. After that, we learn that Lucien then fled to Spring Court, hunted by his brothers, and Tam killed one, and Lucien killed one, and one fled back home. And so Lucien became Tam's emissary, and Tam said, I claimed Lucien as my own, which sounds very kinky, but also is a sign that Tamlin likes to take in strays and give them a home.
What a great guy. Go Tamlin.
Yes. Then they changed the subject and talk about what would make Feyre happy. She herself had never thought about the answer of that. And Tamlin is a creep again, because to me it read like he lists some impossible gifts, like a ribbon of sunshine, and this makes Feyre very uncomfortable because she feels embarrassed, but she wants to leave that feeling behind, so she pretends that her stomach isn't flipping over itself and invites Tamlin to swim.
Yeah,
Steamy.
I think what happened there is that Tamlin was like, would that make you happy? Would this make you happy? And he was just inviting her to say, no, Tamlin, you would make me happy.
Maybe
it was his way of telling that he thinks she's hard to please.
Wow.
Last chapter or so, like last episode's chapter, he said something about, do you even know how to laugh? So maybe he's like, what would make you happy? You don't even know how to be happy. I could give you a ribbon of sunshine and you'd be like, I'd rather sit on the grass.
But it also felt like he was presenting all that he could give her. Like, I can give you everything and she doesn't even want it. You know, she is attracted to him, but she also feels uncomfortable in his presence.
I just had to facepalm because last chapter she told him what would make her happy. Being able to paint. They had this talk.
Yes, true. He's not a good listener. And I like that she chose to go swimming, but what I did not like is that it doesn't truly feel like her decision. It feels like Tamlin kind of pressured her into it, or at least that she pressured herself into doing it, because she's like, no, I know I'm embarrassed, but I don't want to be like this anymore. And I can relate to that feeling to be like, no, I want to change how I am as a person. But the result of that being, I feel uncomfortable with him and I don't want to be that person anymore. So that's why I'm choosing like confrontation therapy, and stripping naked in front of him is definitely a choice.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like she's going I really want it, so I have to jump over my shadow route. It's more like, I want this talk to end, so I'm gonna do something I feel equally but maybe a bit less embarrassed about.
Yes.
She kind of wants to prove a point.
Yeah.
Because they've been bickering back and forth and he's kind of getting a bit too sensitive with it. And now she's like, well, I can go for a swim. But she doesn't want it.
Yes. And then they undress. Ooh. But they leave their undergarments on.
I mean, I think it is mentioned that, yes, Feyre leaves the undergarments on. But is it mentioned that Tamlin does?
I don't think it's mentioned, but I hope he does.
But I think it would have been mentioned if he didn't.
But maybe, do you think it would... Oh, maybe that's too fanfiction-y. I feel like in fanfictions, when they see the parts, they describe them.
The manhood.
Sarah J. Maas usually calls it the length.
Why would she go to such lengths?
But yes, I would like to quote how she describes looking at Tamlin.
Steamy!
I let myself indulge in the glimpse of a broad chest, arms corded with muscle, and long, strong legs before I walked right into that pool. He wasn't built like Isaac, whose body had very much still been in...
That's slander again!
That was so funny!
We do not compare our boyfriends! We don't do that!
It was so funny! I'm gonna go on. He wasn't built like Isaac, whose body had very much still been in that gangly place between boy and man. No, Tamlin's glorious body was honed by centuries of fighting and brutality. You know what that means? She doesn't want a boy. She wants a man. And then they go for a swim. On their strolling swim, they talk about Feyre's history a bit, you know, how she taught herself how to swim and how her father lost his fortune. So he was called the Prince of Merchants, and their good family name masked the poor management and debts that the family had accumulated.
The good family name, Meike Sizzling Hot Beauty.
We still don't know her last name.
No.
But I think this confirms that she has one.
So her father wanted to try to get rid of some of those debts, and he invested into a risky business where some ships had to sail on a dangerous route to Bart? I don't know, some place overseas, and these ships sank. And I took a look, and this place is not on the map, so we don't know where it is.
Presumably just on the big continent in the east.
Probably on the eastern continent or even further.
So he had to take the quicker route because the creditors were breathing down his neck, and then he had to choose the more risky route. And I guess the 3 ships with all their wealth on them sank.
All the cargo, yes.
And that's not good. But that also sparks a question in my mind. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's just flavor, or is that going to be important later?
As I was reading it, I thought, maybe there is a place for conflict, because maybe the courts have trading relationships with overseas as well. And I don't know, there was a blockade or pirates or whatever. They attacked these ships, or something happened where as a result those ships sank. And then she finds out Tamlin was responsible for it. And then there is conflict. He was a pirate.
For me, it was an explanation of how her dad has always been kind of unspirited. I don't know, it just feels like her dad has always been a bit incapable of keeping the family stable and safe.
So they fell from grace when Feyre was 11, and then they still had a little money left, but when she was 14 she had to go hunting for the first time. And then she tells them about her time hunting in the woods.
Yeah, because she feels genuine interest from him.
Yes.
So there you have it. Elk-Kitty is happening.
And on their way home, Feyre talks to Lucien.
Finally.
Yes, she decides to not bring up what she had learned about his past. And they kind of clear the air about the tension that has been there between them from the beginning, that she has killed his friend and that he has sent her into danger with the Suriel. And he admits that when he heard her scream, he did hesitate for a moment, but that he regrets that now. And the chapter ends with him giving her a bejeweled hunting knife.
That ending broke my heart.
Aww.
And it changed every ick I had about the chapter, because I liked this ending so much. I was like, yes, I want to know everything about Lucien. I want him to be a main character.
Yes.
I want his story. I want him to be by our side for the whole series. I need him.
Yes.
We had like 8 pages, Tamlin and Feyre, and just like half a page, Lucien and Feyre, and I was like, I want this so much more than Elk-Kitty.
Yes.
I don't even want them together. I just want Lucien as a bigger character in the story, because he's so interestingly written. And the way he's so honest in that moment when he tells her he hesitated was such a strong character moment.
Yes.
I was so proud, but also so heartbroken.
Yes. I still think he's the most interesting character out of all 3 of them.
By far.
Out of all 4 if we count Isaac.
But not out of all 5 if we count Mahogany Tuff.
Strong contender. I'm interested to find out where the relationship between all 3 of them goes, because as we established, Elk-Kitty seems very much to be happening. But
It sounded like Elk-Kitty.
True.
well, I won't change that now. But there's also this like tension between Lucien and Feyre, and there could be a spark, but they could also just be friends. Who knows? Maybe she actually does replace Andras in that way. But yeah, maybe like Lucien develops feelings, or she develops feelings for Lucien as well. And then there's the famous love triangle that also always seems to happen.
I'm still very sold on our whole Lucien has to sort his loyalties theory, because the way he explains to Feyre why he thinks it's impressive that she cared for the fairy and he hesitated is like he is not used to compassion, and he's like now questioning how to behave in certain situations in a way. It just feels like that will come up later when he has to, I don't know, decide between human and fae or something like that.
I have an idea where the story might be going, because maybe, we know they probably have to go under the mountain, whatever that means, and maybe Tamlin cannot leave the mansion because he has to stay there because, he has to rule his fucking court. And then Lucien and Feyre have to go. But by then, Elk-Kitty has already happened, and then she is on her way with, Lucien, and he is so awesome. And then they have to encounter his father, and he is tortured, and she has to care for him, and she gets to know him even more, and then there develops a sizzling romance, and then she is torn between Tamlin, this heroic, awesome man, and Lucien, this perfect being. And it's like a Stefan Damon situationship.
Okay, I guess we finished the book. Great. ACOTAR was awesome. Next book.
I love that so much. So I think after that kind of weird chapter, there are 2 possibilities for how this story continues now. The first possibility is that this is just the book now. We have fun picnic scenes, and then we have some action, and then another fun picnic or paint or date scene. Or we had this almost too perfect, too clean chapter, because this was maybe the last instance of innocence in Feyre's life, And now shit really hits the fan. And I like option 2, but I don't know if it's gonna be option 2.
I think both of it will happen. We have to engage in the relationship between all of them a bit more, but we also have to finally dive into a big picture thing, because I feel like everything that has happened so far was just like a little episode of something evil. We're not really half in, but I'm certain we're now into the fields of big picture opening to us.
But I am sure, maybe not in this book, but at least in some book, we will get to encounter Lucien's father.
Maybe that's Rysand.
Yes!
I love that just the mention of this name we know nothing about makes you so incredibly happy.
No, but if he's the father of... maybe that... he would be an evil lord, but he'd be the father. Imagine, if he would be a love interest too. Just imagine that, and then that would be so gross if Lucien's father becomes the love interest. No, I don't want that.
Maybe Rysand is one of Lucien's brothers.
Ooh, that's better.
But they are evil.
Maybe they're not evil, they're rogue. Well, if you are interested to find out if we go under the mountain, if we go over the mountain, if we go through summer or autumn court, or if we we teleport to the daytime courts, who knows?
Or if Tam and Lucien finally admit their feelings to each other and make out.
Then you can go on listening to Getting Fae'd wherever you get your podcasts. You're probably already listening on a podcasting platform.
Rate, review, and follow us.
Yes.
Woo! Great marketing pitch, Leah.
Thank you. That is my passion. You can leave a review. You can write us some feedback if you have any on Instagram. You can slide in our DMs.
At Getting Fae'd Pod.
No spoilers, please.
If you want to recommend us to family, friends, or whoever, and want to send them maybe a little snippet so they can get a feeling for what it's like to listen to us, then you can send a reel or a TikTok from our pages, or you can just send them the podcast altogether.
Tell your bisexual friend who can find themselves in Lucien.
Or me. And join us next time when we're
Getting Fae'd!